Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to an inside look at this 1993 Honda Prelude SI 5-speed in Milano Red. Now, those of you who watched my previous videos on this car know that it was a fairly recent addition to the collection. I just got a hold of this car back in April, and as they say, it was kind of one of those opportunities that was too good to pass up. So I've enjoyed taking it through some kind of preliminary restoration phases. The car did not need much, and there's a special future plan for this car that involves another enthusiast. So I'll get into that a little bit later and possibly in a future video. But in the meantime, I kind of just wanted to walk you around the car, show you a little bit about the ins and outs and how well preserved it is for being 31 years old. And of course, if one car is good, then two has to be better, right? So please welcome to the scene the 1989 Prelude SI. You get a first-hand look here right now at the differences between the third generation and the fourth generation, which are very characteristically different cars. This car is nostalgic for me. I've had it since 2021, but my Prelude history goes back more than 25 years to when I was in high school. So this car is a four-wheel steer 89 model with 186,000 miles on it. The 93 SI has just about 220,000 miles. So between these two vintage Hondas, we have about 406,000 miles of distance traveled. And when you get up close and personal, I definitely don't think they look like they've traveled that far. So let's get into the 93, do a walk around, and I'll show you a little bit about what I've done with the car and what's to come in the future. So to recap the first video on this Prelude, the reason it came about is because my mechanic sent a text message to me saying, I have a very clean one owner 93 Prelude that the owner is looking to finally let go, and we're looking for a good home for it. So as any car addict can relate, I couldn't resist taking a look at it. And when I saw the car, I knew right away that it was something pretty special because these fourth gens, well, any Prelude in general, they're getting just so difficult to find in very clean shape. And so this was sort of always from the beginning designed to be a fairly short-term addition. I wanted to save the car from finding its way into the hands of someone who was perhaps going to destroy it, or maybe even someone who just wanted a daily driver, because I think the car deserves a little bit better than that, especially here in Arizona, where if you don't garage keep this car, it would likely fade, as most Milano Red cars do, and within a matter of just a couple of years could be looking pretty sad. So I went through this approach with kind of just a brief idea of a handful of things that I wanted to do with the car, and over the course of the next several weeks and couple months since then, there's been some interest by other enthusiasts, and one person in particular who would like to own a fourth gen in this spec. So in the coming weeks, in fact about 6 weeks from now from the time I'm filming this video, it's going to be heading to a new home, and I have complete confidence that that next owner is going to take this car to the next level, because I've definitely left a few things on the table that I did not do. One of them that many of you have called out already in previous videos is this aftermarket antenna. There's a few things like that that I just kind of left alone, because that's the fun for the restoration project, is customizing things and making it your own. And I didn't want to allow that privilege to the person who'll be taking this car next. Some of you remember my recent video on the 94 Legend GS that I restored. That one took about 1.5 years and a lot more financial involvement. But this car I only did 14 items with, and you can kind of see the list here. I'll put it up here so I can read it to you. But some of them were more involved than others. In fact, some of them were just really quick fixes. I replicated that airbox sticker that was missing by using an eBay or Bring a Trailer picture. The clutch and brake pedal pads, which were an easy fix. I did remove a cup holder that was present here on the passenger side footwell. You can kind of still see the holes that were drilled in there. Unfortunately, those are permanent part of the console now. Let's see, I replaced a small screw in the marker light. I did a complete engine detail, exhaust tip polish. OEM floor mats are long since discontinued, and these cars in particular had a rare pattern in the floor mat, and I just don't think they've aged well, because most of them you see even on eBay in newer shape have heavy duty wear on them. So I found these aftermarket. They're called Lloyd's mats. They have the Honda logo in them, and they're very high quality, super plush mats. The car did have in 2018 a more thorough restoration. It got a full repaint back then and new seat upholstery, which is not factory, and it does have newer carpet too. So that was kind of a phase in this car's life where Julie, the previous owner, had decided she wanted to keep it long term, and that was her way of sort of giving it, you know, a rebirth, as it were, and putting it back on the road for another handful of years. Next on the list, we did some paintless dent removal. This passenger door did have a couple of pretty good dings here, especially along the crease here, which is a difficult place to address, as well as a linear crease here in the passenger side front fender. So those all got taken care of by my friend Jordan at Anytime Dent. Let's see what else. I repainted the shift bezel boot, added the spoiler, which is an OEM upgrade, touched up a few areas. I just recently got the wheels back from Express Powder Coat. So if you're in the Phoenix area and looking to get a complete new life for your alloy wheels, that team is incredibly talented. This is a machine finish with clear coat, and it's just absolutely true to factory spec in every possible way. My favorite thing about it is that they also, as part of that process, the wheels get a completely cleaned out inner barrel as well. So the wheels are as clean inside as they are outside. There was some issues with tar inside the wheel wells. Last but not least, I did have the window tint removed. It didn't look bad from a distance, but it had a little bit of cloudiness and some blemishes throughout. So for right now, the car has a nice crystal clear look to it, so you can admire the interior. This was a really cool design, speaking of which, for its time, where it has basically what you would call a 2+2 style cockpit, meaning 2 seats in the front, 2 seats in the back, and then a pretty huge, generous console running through the middle. And I don't know what that little holder could be good for, aside from maybe a smartphone, but it's a very intimate cockpit, and that was kind of the whole point of this car. It was designed really to embrace the pleasure of driving, and it was marketed that way as well. This is the H23 motor, 160 horsepower, so not particularly aggressive, but there were versions later in time that had the VTEC motor, which was an upgrade. One of the other things that I won't be addressing during my restoration is replacing the CD player with the factory head unit. I'm gonna leave that for someone else down the road. And then this steering wheel, I don't know if somebody at that time of restoration tried to recoat it or refinish it, but it has some blemishes here that I've tried cleaning up, and it just is not wanting to happen. So, as well as up here, you can barely see it, but this is a finish that's completely Arizona sun-baked. And here, of course, is that H23 power plant. This is original to the car, and it runs and drives well. In fact, like any classic Honda, it likes to rev. So this car I actually didn't do anything with mechanically. It was already, especially coming from my mechanic as a referral, I knew that it was pretty well sorted to begin with. So in recent years, this engine did already receive a timing belt. It got an overhaul of the air conditioning system, and it runs and drives well. There's not a ton to talk about back here in the trunk, but I will show you the factory head unit is there, was included with the car. And these are the WeatherTech mats that came with it. I wasn't yet able to get a replica window sticker for the car. This is about as close as I could get from a car that was similar, although you can see the lettering is not great. But that's more or less what it would have looked like, I think, in '93. There were a couple changes between those early 90s years in terms of the design of the sticker, and so it's likely or possible that it was a different one that year. But for right now, that kind of is a placeholder. 23,560. Now this one is for the 95 SI, so 2 years newer, but I'm guessing this 93 would have been somewhere around the same price range, in the low 20,000s when it was new. That's more or less the gist of it. I didn't intend for this to be a full infomercial on the 4th Gen Prelude. If you're interested in that, there are some really incredibly talented YouTubers that have worked on these cars. That's one thing that I do love, is for each and every generation of Prelude, or really any Honda, there's a huge community around them of people who are dedicated and knowledgeable and also very helpful. You'll find Facebook groups, forums, and other organizations that are really helpful for people who want to keep these cars on the road. And the aftermarket support is really good for these cars. So if you're someone who likes to customize and make a project car your own, that's one thing that Hondas are good at too, as well, is becoming sort of a blank canvas for those who pursue that path. So as for coming attractions with the 93, this car has plans that will take it to another enthusiast. I'm going to leave it up to him if and when he wants to publish that. But as for me, I took a lot of pride in performing what I consider to be kind of phase one of the restoration. And then this next owner, who is just as detail oriented as I am, will take it to the next level. And I'm sure you will be seeing this car in car show community events in the future. So it kind of fulfills my promise to Julie, who I got the car from, that I helped to find it a perfect forever home. And there's something special about these cars, and she gets it, I get it, those of you in the audience get it, and hopefully this car has at least 220,000 miles left in it, because I'm confident that it does. By the way, I did want to give a little bit of love to the 89. As a matter of fact, I had some footage from this morning, brief walk around, that I inadvertently didn't record. So here I am later in the evening at the same location with the car, just to do a brief walk around with you. I've had this car for 4 years now, and as I mentioned earlier, it was a car I acquired purely out of nostalgia for having owned a Prelude back in the day. And this thing has 186,000 miles on it. I did put about 800 miles on it over this past weekend, driving to California and back for the Honda Cars, Bikes, and Coffee event. You can see the dash layout on this car is a lot more contemporary, with the pod there over the driver's side, as opposed to the 4th Gen, which was that two-tiered layout. Now I do have the four-wheel steering fully engaged here. You can notice just a slight curvature of the back wheel here. The articulation doesn't go fully to the extent that the front wheels do, but you can see here that up to a certain point, the wheels are designed mechanically to go the same direction as the fronts, and then beyond that certain point they go the opposite direction. So as you can imagine, U-turns and tight parking situations are no match for this car, and it is fully capable and ready for the challenge. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up today. I'm using a different venue today. That's a school, and it's a weekday, so I had a feeling that people were going to start rolling in here and taking over my parking lot, which at 5:30 in the morning is kind of a surprise, but here they are. So I'm going to get out of their way, head back home, and look forward to showing you where this car heads next. for its next chapter in life. So as always, thanks for tuning in.